Welcome back to Slots and Locks. I'm Tim, Authority, IE, which means good afternoon and what's up to you, Mr. Mello.
Oh my God, you're speaking Brazilian Portuguese. Look at you.
I'm trying.
And this is Mello, the podcast where we explore gaming, internet culture, ecology, and the systems that shape how people think and behave.
All right, today
what are we going to talk about today, Tim?
That's a good question. I think with that first part, it was a little bit of the hint to it. So we're going to talk about a game that became much bigger than the game itself.
Yeah, so if you spent any time on the Brazilian social media, because who hasn't, right? Over the last few years, you've probably heard of the game Jogo. Jogo. You know what's funny is you just have to say how it's spelt. That's all you have to fucking do. Jogo do Tigrinho. Jogo do Tigrinho. Okay. You've probably heard of Jogo. You've probably heard of Jogo do Tigrinho or Fortune Tiger.
All right, we're going to do an entire short of you trying to pronounce that. All our Brazilian listeners here, please correct Mello in terms of how to actually say it.
And you literally just have to read it the way it's spelled.
All right. So what's fascinating isn't the game itself. It's how a relatively simple mobile game became one of the biggest gaming phenomena in Brazil.
Yeah. So in many ways, the story isn't really about the game at all, right? It's about the culture, social media, community, and how ideas spread. It's a masterclass in aggressive affiliate marketing, that's for sure. And that collides with a rapidly evolving regulatory ecosystem. And it's becoming an all too common feature as you see these cheap advertising blitzes on TV, such as Tubi, where they literally dominate the free movie landscape. Have you experienced this? It's like sweepstakes casinos have literally taken over the advertising space of free movies.
That doesn't surprise me, or sports betting and stuff like that, but definitely, I don't know. I think in the UK they have some laws where you can't kind of advertise for online gaming anymore.
Oh my God, they're predatory too. So the advertisement we got all the Tubi stuff, right?
Yeah.
And they basically advertise like it's a second job, like you can make, $2,000. Now, technically they're doing engagement and they're trying to I think they're giving you 300 free spins or something, but you can cash out right away. I don't know how that works because obviously it's not legal where I'm at, but
sweepstakes just changed, I think, in California, but yeah, there are certain states that allow it quite a bit. But going back to what we're talking about, we're going to talk about why the rise of Fortune Tiger has some rising similarities to another Brazilian obsession, which is football, or in American speak, soccer.
I feel soccer is like the general word for it. I don't think it's just American. Yes, most people call it football, but I think they also accept football, soccer.
I think people know who you are when you use the word soccer. They know you're American right away. I'm not saying the other countries don't use it, but and we could get into a whole podcast around, we named a sport football, American football, when they barely use their feet.
It's vitally important because there's a field goal and an extra point.
Sure, but 95% of the game, you don't use feet. That doesn't make any sense.
95. Probably. There's punting.
Yeah, I know, but some games people don't even punt. I guess there's kickoffs and punts and stuff like that. Okay, maybe it's not 95%. You can fact check me on that. But a large portion of the game, they don't use their feet.
So you said before my shit cut out, sometimes you don't even punt.
Yep. And I said, sometimes you don't even punt. And I wouldn't say maybe it's 95%. You can fact check me on that. But I will say that a large portion of the game, you do not use your feet.
You're correct.
So why is it called football? Why is it called a handball?
Question. Next episode. Because there is a reason why it's called football.
Yeah. All right. And that's all.
Do you want to know why it's called football?
American football?
No, it's because, and we're going to correct me when I'm wrong on my next episode. I think it's called football because I think the generic name for a game way back when you were just running was called football. They just called it football. That's why it's called football. So when it came over to America, I think, I don't know if any soccer was happening in the early 1900s, but yeah, that's why it just became football, because it was just, they're playing on their feet, a sport.
All right. For this episode, when we say football, we're talking
On a
about
pit.
soccer
On,
on a global level. So we're talking about the real football. All right. So I had to add this disclaimer as well. As always, this channel is focused on psychology, design, culture of gaming, and entertainment. These discussions are educational and analytical and not intended to promote real money play at all.
yeah, we're here to get you smart. So let's get into it.
SAMRT?
SMART, smart.
No, SAMRT.
SAMRT, smart. Yes. I guess that's smirt. Smirt.
I always laugh when someone says that and you spell smart wrong.
If I'm going to be phonetic, well, you wouldn't be phonetic when you say smart because it'd be like smart. You'd be phonetic. It wouldn't work. Anyway. So,
You know how in UK they call it aluminium and we call it aluminum?
I love
There's-
aluminium.
But there's an extra I when they spell it versus us. Anyhow, that's why it makes it aluminium. All
Yeah,
right, let's get into it.
That's like my favorite. That's my favorite British word. It just rolls. It's aluminum. Aluminum sounds kind of dumb.
But we don't have the extra I. The I makes the aluminium.
I know.
Either way.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If you say so, Tim. Anyway,
I'm pretty sure there's two.
so
two spellings,
I am very grateful of aluminium with the extra I or without the extra I.
All right, so let's get into gratitude and reflections. I'm grateful for this. Is really about shared experiences. So when I look back on my favorite memories, they usually involve being part of something larger than myself. Maybe it's a sporting event growing up. Maybe it's going to see a sport. Maybe it's playing a sport, a music concert. And I have to give a shout out to Fish there, as always, and a community gathering or even a hobby that brings people together. And what's interesting is that the thing itself often becomes secondary, but what you remember are the conversations, the excitement, and the feeling that everyone's participating in something together. And I say this to my kids all the time. Life is about experiences. Those are the things that build memories. What about you, Mello?
Do you tell them about your shared experiences at these Fish concerts?
They've been to Fish concerts with me. Funny enough, even as young kids, I think Niall was probably like a year old when we took him to his first show.
Not in all states, though, right? In certain states.
What do you mean?
Certain laws allow for certain things.
Oh no. I mean, that kind of state. Funny enough, I'm usually not any of those things when I go to shows these days.
I feel you're not going to a Fish concert in Missouri.
No, but I've been to a Fish concert in Indiana, Deer Creek, and to other parts of the Midwest. But generally, that was more younger. Now I'm more around me.
More around me.
More like shows that happen around me.
True. And look, and to your point about being more around you, it's easy to get lazy and think that people gather around a specific product.
Yeah.
Or a slot machine or a sports team or a local venue. But they don't. In reality, like you said, it's about getting around other people, preferably with a common interest. So the game itself, Fortune Dragon, or as it's more easily said, Jogo de Tigrinho.
Much better.
Getting good. The game itself is just the hook, right? So its attraction is, I would say the attraction is the simplicity, but it's also, if you look at these commercials, it's very, I don't know what the word is, engaging or charming or attractive, addictive maybe. Anyway, and I think that the simplicity is also a very attractive part of the game. And it's the initial reason why everybody shows up to this table, or in this case, the slot, and especially around a gray area market, listening to influencers who are mostly located in these upscale neighborhoods in Sao Paulo and Rio. I did some research on that, Tim. But eventually, that community becomes the only reason they stick around. And so to me, the real analytical differentiator in my long-winded rant here explains why sports, games, and digital trends scale into absolute cultural phenomena, while other technically superior products just completely vanish, right? So if you don't build, or in this case, grow one organically, that human infrastructure around the product, the moat, if you will, you're just renting eyeballs and you won't own the market moving forward.
That was a mouthful of words.
And the only thing
I like the moat.
The only thing I can think of was the Red Lobster, all you can eat shrimp thing that almost buried the company. I think it pretty much did bury the company.
Red
Are you
Lobster had
familiar with
all you
that?
could.
So Red Lobster a couple of years ago had an all you can eat event and it went viral. So people were showing on how much shrimp they were actually consuming, and they basically had to put limits and stop the all you can eat promotion because it was draining all their profits.
That kind of makes sense. Probably should have gotten rid of that promotion. Hopefully, they had good terms and conditions. Yeah, I should say too, before we kind of keep going here, I really do think what you say is a great point. Today's episode is really about the community phenomenon or as much about the game itself. But I guess I have a question back to you before we kind of jump a little further. Have you been to Brazil before?
Never ever been to Brazil, even though I wrote a paper on an Afro-Brazilian religion called Candomblé.
Me either. I've never been to South America, been to Central America. It's on my list of places to go. So I'd love to hear anyone in the comments that's either from Brazil or been to Brazil, like where to go. I'd love to see the country, not just the cities. Maybe we'll do an episode down there one of these days, right?
Have you ever read the book about the guy who swam the Amazon River?
Did he make it?
But yeah, he made it. It's a Slovenian marathon swimmer, Martin Strel, became the first man to swim the entire length. I think it was in 2008. Anyways,
That's amazing.
a lot of calamities involved. There's certain like insects that crawl up certain parts of your body, which make things really interesting and fun.
So we mentioned about Fortune Tiger, but before we kind of get into that, I think we should talk a little deeper into another phenomenon that has united Brazil for generations, which is football. And Brazil has won 5 World Cups, I believe, more than any country in history. Fact check me if we're wrong here, but what makes Brazil special isn't the trophies; it's how football became part of everyday life, the culture itself. Kids playing in the streets, families gathered around televisions, entire cities stopping during important matches. I kind of wish we had a lot of that feel. I mean, we have it on some big events here in the States, but nowhere near the culture of Brazil itself. And what's remarkable is that almost every generation seems to produce another superstar between Pele, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, Rivaldo, Kaki, Neymar.
Pele was probably my introduction to soccer backslash football.
I think so as well.
I
Mine
mean,
probably the same age group.
the
Yep.
kick where he kind of backflips. Wow. And I think what makes Brazil so fascinating, obviously winning a World Cup is incredibly difficult, obviously. But I think every tournament starts with dozens of nations and hundreds of elite players. Yet somehow Brazil is almost viewed as a perennial contender. And I think part of that is talent, but I think the bigger part is culture. Football isn't just a sport in Brazil. To borrow a phrase from Ted Lasso, football is life in Brazil. It's a shared language. It's a source of pride. It's something that connects the people, regardless of your background. And I think it's key because you just need a field and a ball. You don't need money. And I think that's huge.
Yeah, and as we probably should say, as we're filming this, the World Cup is actually happening in Mexico, Canada, and the United States.
And
Brazil is next game is Scotland, so it's a little outdated here. But I think they're playing Scotland next, which is a huge game to get to the bracket. All right, through our framework that we keep coming back to, perception is greatness. Probability says winning the World Cup is incredibly difficult, but design is a youth system, the culture, the passion that continuously produces the talent itself.
yeah, so like we said, football in Brazil, and I think in other perennial World Cup teams, it's more than a sport. It's a cultural experience. And like I said earlier, and I wish I remember the guy's name in Ted Lasso, but football is life. Football is life.
Let's see.
Did you get lost?
Spirit striker Danny Rojas.
Danny Rojas' quote, football is life.
Yeah, and while nothing compares to the World Cup itself, modern internet culture has created its own version of shared experience.
And that gets us to Fortune.
Okay.
So what is Fortune Tiger?
That's a damn good question. What is Fortune Tiger? It was developed by a game company called PGSoft, which is a company known for creating mobile-first games. On paper, the game seems relatively straightforward. You got a tiger mascot, bright visuals, simple mechanics, and a theme centered around luck and prosperity. I think definitely themes that we mentioned in some Asian themed games around the luck prosperity.
It did surprise me. I would classify it as an Asian themed game, without a doubt.
Yeah, we probably should maybe cross reference some of the other titles we've done in the past or other podcasts in the past where we did, what was that Asian themed game? Was it 88 Fortunes, I believe?
Hold on a sec.
Have we kind of tapped
I
into it?
cut.
Yeah, so you're right. It is an Asian themed game, but I always call out another podcast we've done around 88 Fortunes, which is also an Asian themed game, which has that luck prosperity thing as well. But if you spend any time around online gaming, you probably see hundreds of games that look very similar, which is what makes the story, I think, a bit more interesting.
If someone would have asked me to predict what game would become a cultural phenomenon in Brazil as a slot machine using my vast experience and talent, Fortune Tiger probably not would not have been my first guess. There are games with more features. There's games with bigger win potential. There are games with better art. There's bigger brands. Somehow, this game became the face of an entire movement. And that's when you realize the story just isn't about the mechanics or the game or the art. It's about distribution. It's about timing, culture, aggressive affiliate model marketing, et cetera, et cetera.
It's interesting how some of these games can just explode like that. Well, should we put on a game? Because this talking to the Fortune Tiger, I wonder if we should actually play it or not. What do you think?
Let's play it. Because I can do that.
Do you have a video of it?
I do have a video of it.
Okay. So let's just play and keep kind of going towards it. And if you could skip a little bit to any bonus round or anything like that, that'd be great.
Where the hell is it? There it is. Okay. It's going to be really quick because what's this?
All right. So we're going to show the game here a little bit. As you can see, there's only 3 reels, really simple with different symbols and things like that. But one thing I would just say that I kept coming back to while researching and playing this game for this episode was that thousands of games launch every single year. Most disappear. Most never become part of the cultural conversation. Yet Fortune Tiger became one of those most recognizable games in Brazil itself. And what's interesting, if you strip away the popularity itself, you got in the bonus round.
Here's the hold and win feature.
There you go.
This is my big win, my big 250.
And so if you strip away the popularity and look purely at the game itself, there isn't something revolutionary here in terms of the mechanics hiding underneath. It's not the first successful mobile game. It's not the first lucky animal game. It's not the first game with simple gameplay. So why is this one?
I think the answer has less to do with the game, obviously, and more to do with the environment it entered. So when this started gaining traction, Brazil already had massive smartphone adoption. If you notice, it's perfectly designed for a smartphone. It's in the 916 range, like our awesome short media development that we do. Ha 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 ha. And at the time, WhatsApp was everywhere. Culture was exploding. So short form video was becoming dominant. And this game arrived exactly at the right moment. If you look at it, a perfect short influencer, hey, I'm winning, here, shout out to my friends, etc. kind of thing. So it was simple enough to understand immediately and visually enough to work in short clips for the social media posts. So the game didn't need a 5-minute explanation, and people could understand that relatively quickly.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point. Some products are kind of optimized for experts, like some games and games that are really designed and complex of knowing what you're actually winning and why, and other games are optimized for sharing. And I feel like we've hit this theme the last few podcasts, which is really around that sharing influence culture and how the online gaming industry has changed quite a bit because of that, because it shifted these influences that push certain content because of that sharing ability. Fortune Tiger as a whole, I think, feels like it was built for sharing, which is probably why it's so popular. And if we kind of get into this, like if we ask the question of why Fortune Tiger and not another game, I think the question that fascinates me the most, why wasn't it Gates of Olympus or Sweet Bonanza or Big Bass Bonanza or thousands of games that were available? Why did Fortune Hunter? Why did Fortune Tiger become the face of the phenomenon?
Fortune Hunter.
What do you think?
I think people often assume that the winning product must be the best product, but culture doesn't always work that way. And if sometimes the most successful product isn't the most sophisticated, it's the most memorable, or in Fortune Tiger, it has that simple mascot. And let's face it, he's a cool little guy. I mean, but I think To your point, if you look at this from a screen perspective, it's going to play perfect for promotion, right? It's a simple
Yep.
mascot, a simple name, a simple theme. You can explain to somebody in 5 seconds, and that I think is incredibly powerful.
I always liken it to this is more graphically advanced, but something like Craigslist. So it's one of those things where it's a simple website, but still it does really, really well. Uh,
No,
okay.
good. No, I think it's funny too because everybody always wanted to. I just remember always having to hear is like why, because they always go to the analyst and they go, "Why is this game so successful?" And you're actually supposed to be a definitive. You're supposed to come up with some kind of definitive reason why it's so successful. I'll be honest with you. In slot machines, that answer is usually simplicity, and in
Yep.
this case, it's simplicity, but it's also for the market it's actually being used for, right?
We can probably stop sharing the game itself. Tiger, you mentioned the tiger itself became part of the identity. People weren't saying the game with the lucky animal. They were saying Tigrinho. Hopefully I said that right. The game became the character.
Jogo do Tigrinho. It's catchy. Exactly. Exactly. At that point, you stopped being a game and started becoming a brand. And brands spread much farther than mechanics.
Should we go back to, I think we should go back to our framework, right? Perception, probability, design. Now, if we take a look at Fortune Hunter, why do I keep saying Fortune?
Fortune.
Let's look at the Fortune Tiger through our framework. Perception is probably the easiest part to understand. The game feels friendly. The tiger is smiling. The visuals are bright. Everything about the presentation feels positive and approachable.
Yeah, there's firecrackers. And as we know, there are those. Remember what those things are called?
Which one?
It's, the little, they look like hats, but they're, I get, we're not sharing the screen anymore. So I'm pointing at a screen and it's just, you're not seeing it. So, anyway, yeah. So, but probably, let's get back to our mantra. So, probability is where things become less visible. So, underneath those visuals is the mathematical model, just like every other game we talk about. But most people don't experience probability directly. They experience the design, they feel the design through their visuals and their dopamine effects from all of that. And this is where Fortune Tiger, or as Tim likes to call it, Fortune Hunter, really succeeded. So the game, like we said, was built for mobile phones. It was built for short attention spans. It was built for social sharing. It was perfect for the mobile era.
That's a interesting distinction. Traditional games were often designed for casino floors. Fortune Tiger feels like it was designed for a smartphone first, the internet second, and the gaming platform third. And so if we go a little bit deeper into this in traditional versus Fortune Tiger, you can think about how people discovered games 20 years ago. You walked through a casino floor, you saw a machine, you sat down, you tried it. That was the distribution model.
Yeah, it's funny. When I see this, I see in a traditional floor setting. Remember when IGT would do these massive, it was one slot machine, but it would be this massive thing. It would be like 8 feet by 8 feet. It would be this massive dream.
Yeah. Over the
This
top,
is
like banks.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they never worked out. That's why you don't see them anymore. But yeah, they always would do that thing. And if I look at this, I just think of those curved kind of cabinets where this is going to just, because the sound, it play for the sound too. It's pretty, for this to work though, somebody would have to discover the game. Today, somebody discovers a game because of this. They saw this clip on TikTok or wherever, or a friend sent them a video, or an influencer talked about it somewhere, or an affiliate. But more than likely, it probably appeared in some social feed, right? And the distribution model had completely changed, right? So people who were more interested in this kind of stuff, their algorithm would basically drive them to this kind of stuff in social media. That's all I have to say about that.
Is that your Forrest Gump impression?
That is my Forrest Gump impression.
Yeah. It's quite amazing, to say the least. But
My impression.
yeah, exactly. Which means the game design is changing too. It's no longer enough for a game to be good. It also has to be shareable.
And like we said, Fortune Tiger may be one of the first major examples, particularly in Brazil, of a game becoming more famous because it perfectly matched the way people were going to consume the product.
And let's bring this now full circle with Fortune Tiger in the World Cup. And I think it's an interesting comparison. Okay, so let's bring this full circle again, talking about how Fortune Tiger and the World Cup come together. I think it's a really interesting comparison. So why does the World Cup become such a massive event every 4 years? It's not just because of football. It's because everyone's talking about the same thing at the same time.
Yeah,
I'm sure
and
football
in a
has
much
something to do
small.
with it. I'm
Well,
sure football has something to do with it, right?
football is, Tim, the most popular sport in the world.
Yes.
You quote me on that. Anyway, and in a much smaller way, Fortune Tiger experienced something similar, right? People weren't just playing the game, they were talking about it, they were sharing the clips, they were sharing the opinions, sharing the stories. The conversation became bigger than the product. And it's funny, too, in researching this, if you go to YouTube and you type in Fortune Tiger, if you type in Fortune Hunter, you're not going to find much. But if you type in Fortune Tiger, the amount of videos dedicated to this is insane.
Yeah. I mean, I think between the two, it's a different scale, like the World Cup versus Fortune Tiger. It's different importance, but similarly, social dynamics are very similar. People want to participate in that shared experience itself.
Yeah, I think it's key that we kind of do something like this because typically we do games that are successful because there's something special about them or meaningful about them. And there's something obviously special about this game. But I think the biggest part of it is it's the cultural phenomenon in Brazil. And I think usually the ones that successfully create those experiences stick around.
Yeah. So let's talk about Brazil's kind of gaming future. If you look ahead, Brazil may become one of the most important gaming markets in the world. The population itself is massive. Whole adoption is enormous. The creator economy is growing rapidly, and the gaming culture continues to expand.
Yeah, and Brazil also has the natural landscape for a destination. So it's not only just there's a casino there, right? But there's also the Amazon, there's beaches, there's amazing food, just et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, but the next phenomenon might not be Fortune Tiger at all. It might be a completely different game in a completely different country. But the lessons will be the same. The community matters, culture matters, distribution matters, visuals matter. And increasingly, mobile and the internet decide what becomes popular based on how it's distributed.
Yeah, the most successful games of the future may not be the games with the best mechanics. They may be the games that become part of the conversation. With that, I think the question for the audience, why do you think Fortune Teller became a massive phenomenon in Brazil when thousands of other games never gained anywhere near the same attention? Do you agree with our analysis of this? Do you have a different opinion? Tell us in the comments.
Yeah, and what is the biggest gaming, sports, or internet trend you've ever watched explode in real time on social media or the internet?
Yeah, so we'd love to hear your thoughts. Give us a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel.
Thanks for listening.
And to all our Brazilian fans out there, best of luck to Brazil as the World Cup continues.
Yes, and we'll hopefully see you next time. Always gamble responsibly and never spend more money than you can afford to lose.
And believe responsibly.
Believe responsibly. You should believe responsibly.
Exactly.
It's becoming more and more of a motto.
100%.
I've been releasing hard. Wait. I gotta be running and well,